Another thing I forgot to summarize for you is that it is white supremacists, Christian nationalists, who have misinterpreted the Bible. And the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints are just that, white supremacist Christian nationalists. And that's why they incorrectly interpret the Bible, is to hold their followers in bondage by lying to them and deceiving them, denying science of our biological natures, and using fallacy arguments with their misinterpretation of Scripture. It's real simple. And so I guess you don't need to watch the rest of the video now that I've summed it all up for you at the beginning, or in the middle, or I don't know where. Maybe before the pictures. I'll make you listen to this and then show you the pictures and then show you the extra information that I forgot to put in and then the actual video. As I was working on the thumbnail picture for you, I remembered the magic underwear discussion was not had, so we'll include that here. And not that it matters, nobody's going to be listening this far into the video. And so you're going to miss out on all the fun stuff. But Brigham Young was the one who created it. Joseph Smith, no. Thus, he didn't have magic underwear when he was dead. That's why it wasn't by Joseph Smith. It was Brigham Young who created it. And thus the whole concept of the markings. But in the section of the booth where you get the magic underwear, which has been changed, you're now wearing your magic underwear through the whole thing, fully clothed now. You're not naked anymore and then getting magic underwear put on you because temple workers were found out to be gay. And we're using that to look at men's bodies. Porn. But it's said that the garments represent the garments given to Adam and Eve when they were found naked in the Garden of Eden. But the church is deceptive on that. They won't talk about Lucifer saying that they need to cover up, they need to hide. They skip and go right to where the Lord then makes clothing for them, teaches them how to make clothing, basically. That's the first profession. It's not prostitution. People miss that with incorrect interpretation. And so it's underwear for us. It's not outer clothing. Brigham Young purposely deceived you because his intention was that the magic underwear is for the temple covenants of loyalty to the church to restore his Zion from the United States. And he's using sex and sexuality as a compromat, Russian word, compromised, to Mormons to get them trapped, hooked, in bondage and sex slavery to Brigham Young. It's similar to honey traps that Russians use to compromise people they want. And even Russia will use the internet with sex sites with Russian women also to do that. That's why YouTube will show advertisements, date a Russian woman. It's just so inappropriate. But Brigham Young purposely was using women and his miseducation on sex to trap Mormons to obey him. And so when a Mormon, kisses somebody, they think they've violated the law of chastity, and then therefore go in to see their bishop, and then they get graphic in detail with their bishop, and then he excommunicates them or disciplines them in some other form or fashion by not taking the sacrament or whatever. And the Mormon thinks that they're sinful because they kissed a girl. Should that be the theme song in the description below rather than the Win a Date with Ted Hamilton? Interesting. We'll see. I mean, you guys aren't going to watch this part of the video anyway unless I put it at the beginning. And so... And so that's what the garments are for Mormons. It's not about sex, but Mormons think it is. And it's about loyalty to the church, that you wear the magic underwear, because it's to remind you of your temple covenants. That's why the square and compass of Freemasonry are on your boobs. You are branded by Brigham. That was the pre-branding that now women who get tattoos, brandings from their pimp or their gang, one holding them hostage in a gang or Russian mob or whatever else, they purposely brand you, even with the auction thing, when you're sold as a sex slave to some rich guy around the world. As a Mormon here in Utah did that. He went to Turkey to buy his sex bride, brought her to Utah. She denied him sex and called the cops on him. And so he got busted. That was last year, was it? Or was it? No, I think it was last year. Yeah, interesting. But you will know them by their brand. And that's what Brigham Young did with the magic underwear, is he branded Mormons to be loyal to the church, and thus forcing Mormons to wear the magic underwear night and day. And then Mormons get obsessed and have to wear it in the shower and wear it at the beach and for sporting events. And, yeah, it's stupid. But yeah, that's how it all came from. So, there you have it. That's why and wherefore. And so hopefully that'll help you when you leave the church to do away with your magic underwear. Take them off. Take them off. I will put this at the beginning. And thus, this will all be what you listen to. Now you won't even listen to my video. Travis Wayne Goodsell. I'm noticing this morning that my female audience is disappearing. And thus, with the type of videos I've been doing for the last week, suggests that it's because of the porn videos I've been doing. And it's unfortunate because it's not because porn, as described by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, is evil, but that's the whole problem. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has caused this problem. And technically it's Christians who caused this problem. There is only one interpretation of Scripture. That one and only one interpretation of Scripture is by the author who wrote it. No other interpretation of Scripture is correct. So if you're doing a read, ponder, pray, getting a spiritual witness interpretation, it's wrong. Automatically. And so the stumbling block caused by Christianity on the Scriptures is their interpretation of the Jewish author's Scriptures. Christianity is not a correct interpretation of the Jewish Scriptures. That's why they're an abominable church. That's why the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is abominable, because they did the exact same thing to Joseph Smith in the Book of Mormon. The Book of Mormon is in the learning of the Jews. That means there is no Christian interpretation of it. And by Christian, I mean Jesus as literal history, reality. It's all fake. From the Nicene Creed. I shouldn't have to repeat this over and over again, but the way YouTube is designed, I have to. And you guys aren't smart enough to know that I have other videos that would explain it. The Nicene Creed 325 CE. Not the period of time when the Scriptures were written. The creation of Christianity. It did not exist before. It all of a sudden appeared because of the Council of Nicaea. And in that creed, they chose the name Jesus for their Christ, and thus altered the interpretation of the Jewish Scriptures written before to be of their created Christ. And the nature and character of their Christ, Constantine had to create a brand new word that never existed before, because none of the bishops would agree. And so it was homuzion, which they define within the text as not real. because he made up the word. Duh. So Christianity is a fraud. Thus, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is a fraud. But in regards to lack of sex education, the Church pushes abstinence only within marriage. And so, growing up as teenagers, they're told no touchy, no looky, because of the miseducation on sexuality. Little girls are raised to believe that if they show their bodies, men will then get aroused and desire to have sex with them. This is a lie you've been told, women. Because when boys hit puberty, they already begin processing seed. And their bodies do not stop it. 24/7 they are making it. And when it starts to get full, they start to get ideas in their head. And they get weird and horny. But if they don't release it, it gets worse in their head. They start to get angry, they start to get frustrated, they start to get uncomfortable, uneasy, they get agitated by other things in their life. You know, the stapler's not working right, so they throw it across the room. And they don't understand why they're having these feelings and emotions. They can't explain them. They need to watch a guy flick and destroy something to get it out of their system. Yeah, that's why. And so, when the church excommunicated Natasha Helfer, a psychologist, because she references to her clients medical science, which is strange, because the church purposely uses psychology not to use medical science, and that's why they excommunicated Natasha Helfer. She violated psychology, because psychology is anti-science. She was saying that pornography and masturbation are not harmful. The church is pushing this. They are harmful. They'll kill you. You'll die. You'll deny the faith. And you'll be a pernicious evil for being pregnant. Yep. President Ezra Taft Benson, in his solemn assembly conference to the youth of the noble birthright, quoted Miracle of Forgiveness by Spencer W. Kimball, which quoted Elder Packer from a conference talk. And if any of you have ever studied the old conference talks, you will see that in the 70s, they were full-on paranoid obsessed with R-rated and X-rated movies. But only the 70 were the ones doing the fear video, the fear talks, trying to get Mormons to obey them, to stay away and not look at women naked and look at sex, to be educated on how to do it. Because the mere portrayal of anything, regardless of the art medium, is still art and is protected by the United States Constitution and Supreme Court precedent. And therefore, this Christian mob seeking to alter and defy the laws of the land is a seditious conspiracy. And the church is a part of that, as they keep pushing for it. Religious freedom. Religious freedom for what? You've already got religious freedom in the First Amendment. It's so that they can ban porn for everyone. And they've succeeded here in the state of Utah. The legislature, majority Mormon, and I mean majority, we're talking less than a handful who aren't Mormon, had created a law banning porn in Utah. You have to sign in to prove you're an adult, which goes into a registry that the state of Utah can spy on you with and know exactly what kind of porn you watch, and thus makes you susceptible to hacking and other terrorist threats of cyber crimes. The law was stupid and criminal in its creation. And the district judge is helping them because of his dumbass ignorance. But nonetheless, and yeah, I was a victim because I was trying to look at white satin and went to a certain clothing website, and they forced me to sign in because it's porn, clothing. See, the scriptures no longer matter anymore. The interpretation is any image of a woman is now porn. And do you not think that men see the real women as pornographic? I've been warning women. The temple. This is why they want to cover you up. They don't like you. It's only for sex. That's it. And here I am. I've always liked women. I don't want to hang out with the guys. I want to play with girls. Always have. And because I'm Mormon, I never did. I want you to do fashion shows for me. And I can't get a woman to do so because women think it's porn. Even in the marriage. And that's where the damage is caused. And so, in the scriptures in Matthew, and this is why Brigham Young put it in the temple, which is weird. We'll do the temple first. In the temple, Brigham Young wrote the temple text and had it so that Lucifer is the one, after they partake of the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, that he says, hey, look, you're naked. Cover up. Hide. Lucifer's doing that. Not God. God says, what are you doing? Who told you you were naked? It's Lucifer's doctrine to shame women and cover you up. Lucifer's. So now, go into Matthew chapter 5, verse 27. He starts off with another restoration of the law of Moses, because the Pharisees had screwed it up. And so he says, ye have heard that it was said by them of old time, thou shalt not commit adultery. Okay? Do you know what adultery is? Yes, there are multiple definitions, but the basic thing is corrupting a substance. And in this particular case regarding women, women are property of their husbands. Women are not allowed to own property. They are not allowed to own a business. and live their lives on their own. That's why women, until they were married off, were with their parents. And so it's a frustrating thing for a couple if they can't get their daughter married off. And this is the sad reality of the world during the Roman period time. And there's more that I'll get into here, but he then goes on to say, "But I say unto you that whosoever looketh on a woman to lust after her hath committed adultery with her already in his heart." Okay? So now under our current 2,000 years later definitions of words in English, Christians and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints justify banning porn. Women cannot be looked upon. They have to be covered up. So down in Utah County, they don't allow magazine covers of women, even if they're women's magazines, women's health, women's fitness, to be shown at the checkout counters. I remember the day when they were out here in the Salt Lake Valley County. Going to the stores, going through the checkout line at the grocery store, they had the racks of all of the women's magazines. They banned those. They covered them up in Utah County. And the billboards, nope, has to be church positive billboards. Can't advertise anything that is anti-church. This is where they got it from. And then 3 Nephi 12 copies it. And then section 42, starting in verse 22, there's some differences. "Thou shalt love thy wife with all thy heart, and shalt cleave unto her, and none else." Do you know what that means? It means have sex with her and none else. It comes from Genesis, which we're going to get to. "And he that looketh upon a woman to lust after her shall deny the faith, and shall not have the Spirit." So is it little boys hitting puberty? Are they not allowed to look on a woman? See, when I was a teenager in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, deacon at 12 years old, now it's 11, and little girls now go into the young women's program at age 11, because Nelson said they can now go to the temple at 11. And boys can pass the sacrament at 11. Is it being done? And then teachers at 14, and then priests at 16. I was told by the advisors that we had, because the bishop's in charge of the whole Aaronic priesthood, and thus the priests, but we had a priest quorum advisor, as well as a teacher's quorum advisor and a deacon's quorum advisor for the classes that we had. And so I had advisors who, when we were out on activities where we would see other women, he, as a married man, of course, would also see these women. And he would tell us that it's natural to look at a woman once. But if you look at her twice, and so, your first look, make it a good long look. Stupid, but hilarious. So that's why men act weird around you, women. It's because of the church. So there's some problems with this. This is an English translation of Greek. And the Greek has been tampered with in definitions by the Christian Church of Roman Emperor Constantine. And so if you learn Greek and you obtain yourself Scott and Liddell's English Greek lexicon, as you go through the words, you'll notice that there's Catholic interpretations that they'll put in there for certain words. Yeah, it's because they are unaware of the original Greek word. And so the only word that they know to define it is by the Catholic Church that altered it. It's wrong. And so you need to decipher Greek or listen to somebody who has to know the true meaning of the word. And so yes, there are people who think they know Greek and they've studied Greek, and Thomas O. Lambden it was Thomas Robinson, who I studied Greek under. You know, there is a current traditional understanding of Greek interpretation, and it is for the most part correct. But there are words missing, and there are corruptions from other languages that crept in and provided alternate definitions. But Greek, in its origin, had been altered as Babylon, or not Babylon per se, the Babylonian Hebrew, yes, creeping into it. But the Romans then tampered with it. And then you get other languages around the same time period that also creep in and alter the language. And so it's necessary to redo the research and redecipher Greek for the first time to get the original languages. And so there's some important corrections that need to be made with this passage. We believe the Bible to be the Word of God if it is translated correctly. And Joseph Smith does allude to it by putting in, only have sex with your wife, because that's what it's referring to here. It's married men. That's why adultery is talked about. You can't commit adultery if you're not married. The word fornication by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints means sex with a single person. You are single, they are single, you have sex, or you do get the second base, if that's what I think it is. I don't know what the bases are. Nobody's ever told me. But I think first base is kissing, finally getting to kiss her. Second base is touching her over or under her sweater. I don't know, could be both. The third base is touching her carnal treasure with the Win a Date with Tad Hamilton. You'd have to see that movie to know what I'm talking about. And we're going to use that in the description below. There's got to be a theme song involved there. theme. Okay. And maybe we'll do the movie clip instead of a song. And home run, yeah, intercourse. And so, no. Anybody recognize a similar phonetic equivalent with pornication? Yeah, that's the word, porn. But it's not our current definition by evangelicals in 1900 that created it. It's the Greek, which means prostitute. Because if I say prostitute, you're going to already use the wrong definition of prostitute. But that's how it came into being, is the origin. Under the Greeks, well, let's go back to the Egyptians. Under the Egyptians, the new pharaoh who gets coronated also gets married to his queen in order to become the king. You have to do both. You cannot be a single pharaoh. You have to be married. And so the coronation coincided with the marriage sealing. And it was in the temple. And so after they get married at the temple, there was a room for the couple to conceive the heir to the throne. That was their original created understanding of life and government, therefore. That marriage is for the cycle of life, and thus carried on into the culture, into the government, into the religion. And the temple is that place, is that symbolism, because the Egyptian language are picture languages. And, it requires someone who has deciphered the learning of the Egyptians and the language of the Egyptians to help you out with this. And so when people migrated out throughout the whole world, they carried that tradition with them and then altered it to their culture, their government, their religion, their language over the course of time. Understanding that basic concept that everything began in Egypt and migrated out is essential when doing anthropology research or archaeological research on any culture throughout the world at any particular time. And so the Babylonians, which, the Assyrians first, but they likewise had a whole parade for the king, but then added to it a yearly remembrance of that for his coronation and his conception with his queen, which in this particular case was the daughter of the high priest that he was married to. It was an arranged marriage type of situation. And so there would be an annual remembrance of this with a parade leading to their ziggurat. And he would, in the temple, again have sex with his queen as part of the ceremonial holy day. And so the temple continued to be associated with sex, with marriage. So then you get the Greeks. And under the Greeks, they begin a Babylonian alteration in which the temple is still a place for the sex rituals. But this time, the regular common folk can participate in the religious rituals at the temple, and thus began the practice of single women at the temple for men to come and worship and have sex during the creation reenactment ceremony. And so the women, when they weren't working, were outside of the temple that had the statues and the pillars of the temple, waiting for a customer, a temple ritual patron, an initiate. And thus, prostitute was created before the statue, because the women were standing before the statues. And so, as it became a derogatory term in the culture, because women who didn't become temple workers were still unable to make a living, own property, because they are not married. And the only way for them to make money is to follow the example of the temple workers, but not be a temple worker, and thus gave rise to prostitution, where women would sell their bodies just as the temple workers did. And instead of for the ritual of procreation and all of that in the religion, it was now taken into the common world so that women could make money to live. That is the law that is given in the scriptures: to not commit fornication. Do not have sex with a temple worker or an actual prostitute. Has nothing to do with single women and single men, because Genesis tells us that we are ordered to leave our parents and have sex with someone, and only have sex with that someone. And so woman, used in Matthew, does not mean female. Woman means a married female who's had babies by her husband. It does not mean a virgin, a maiden, because we are ordered in Genesis to look on a virgin and desire to marry her, and only her. And so when I did the video on Holly Jane, she, because of our cultural practice, believed that her first marriage, when she had a child at 19 years of age, she was too young. No, she was not given proper sex ed. She was not trained and educated for getting married. That's why her first marriage failed. Because it's not about teaching kids how to have sex. It's teaching kids how to live in society with just the two of them. So they have to learn to communicate with each other. They have to learn how to live with each other and share a bathroom and decide whether they're going to use the same toothpaste or not, and whether it's going to be squeezed in the middle or from the end. But not allow any little stupid argument to destroy the marriage. All of these things have to be taught to a kid. You have to learn finances to learn how to live in the economy. You have to be told that it's the government's fault, not your husband's fault, like the family proclamation tells Mormon girls. Mormon girls, under the family proclamation, believe that the man is required to go out and get them the lifestyle that their daddy provided for them. And the majority of you know that's just not possible. But yet little Mormon girls who are not married don't fully grasp this. And so they go without getting married because no rich guy, returned from his mission barely, is going to take care of them according to the way they want to be taken care of. And then, by not teaching sex ed on top of it, Mormon girls go into the marriage believing that, okay, now I will show him my body, and then he will then desire me, and then we'll only have sex for babies. Oh, dear God. And so the man gets married, I can finally have sex. And then she says, I'm not in the mood. We already had sex on our honeymoon. Isn't that enough? What do you mean you want more? The church sabotages our marriages. And it's an abomination. And so, instead of threatening kids with fear tactics, we need to be honest and open with our kids. I saw in my kids, when they were little kids, they wanted to learn how to be an adult. I saw as they tried to replicate what they were trying to understand about mommy and daddy and how to live like mommy and daddy. That's why Barbie is so important and why it's so evil that Mormon and evangelical housewives were shaming Barbie. It's a doll. Back off. You already got it so that it's not anatomically correct. What more do you want? But the Egyptians, yeah, the language itself taught everyone about their human body and sexuality, because it's all tied in together. And so they had no problem showing kids nudity, because that's a part of life. And so, yeah, there's a mistranslation in the Bible, both the Genesis and Matthew accounts. But it's awful to see the damage that's being done to Mormonism. That Holly Jane believed that because the church says you can't show your body only to your husband, but even in the marriage it's only to trigger him to desire sexual intercourse with you. It's just pure evil. And so as a result, she now is gone to the other extreme and it has no problem showing everybody her body as long as you pay for it. You don't get to see if you don't pay. The whole purpose of the internet, dear, was so that I can see you for free. And thus the porn industry used to be making hundreds of billions of dollars. And then the internet came along and they're only making billions. It was a huge tanking of the industry. And that's what happens when you decriminalize what is normal practice in society. And so there's obviously more that I could explain in scriptures for you on this subject, because Samuel with Eli, and Mary with Joseph, and such from out other documents that are not in our scriptures, and I've been going over them with you, but it's really sad that little girls don't have intercourse and don't get pregnant, but still believe they're no longer a virgin because of the miseducation that they've been given. And so they get shamed and they feel guilty, and that takes them down a path in life that they shouldn't go down if they were taught correctly. It's just sad. And then you get Mormon women who had sex with guys by cruising the main streets, and they get pregnant, and then she believes that she was a prostitute, and that's how she got pregnant, but she never got paid for her sex. You're not a prostitute there. You got to get paid. And so yes, the women at the temples did get paid, similarly to the priests at the temples, because people also went there with food and drink offerings for the gods, for which the priests presented it at the Holy of Holies, for it to be blessed, and then a portion, sacrament, in Mormon understanding, communion, sacrament of communion in Catholic Church, back to the worshipers. And the rest of it was for the service of the priests, and thus, in the Greek period of time, the female temple workers as well. And yes, the practice of paying for sex also helped with that. So that bringing food and drink offerings to the woman as well. Thus, dating a woman by taking her to dinner and buying her things and gifts, and then expecting her to reciprocate with sex, that's prostitution. And Mormon women, because they force you to wait until marriage, are higher priced prostitutes. I'm glad this is at the end of the video where nobody's listening anymore, because women in the older singles ward were pissed with me for saying that. Women didn't want to go on free dates where I didn't give them gifts. They wanted gifts, but they didn't want to put out. Hilarious. Why are you not in your file? The Stellarium picture is not in the file where it should be. That's strange. Alrighty.